Hi, welcome to the video on Introduction to Project Management. In this video, we will explore the fundamentals of project management. In general, we will look at the 5 W's and H as I was describing a while ago. We learn these different fundamentals through analogies, examples, and so on. So let's look at the objectives. At the end of this video, you will be able to first define what is project management, differentiate two terms, process and quality, explain the two phases of project management. We will see what these two phases are. Learn about the stakeholders of a project. Let's begin the understanding of what a project is all about. Because first we have to define what a project is. The moment I say a project, it might sound that it has something to do with time for you. If you are thinking in that line, then you are right. Yes, a project is a set of activities which are time bound. That is, you have a specific start time and a specific end time. Of course, we have certain boundaries or constraints to do these activities. They might be cost, scope, time, and other aspects. Let's now talk about project management, because we need an approach or a means by which you do projects. Otherwise, the start and end activities, they have to be approached in a certain way. So it's a process. So that process or the means that we are talking about is called project management. But here comes a big question. Why do we need a process? A process is needed because we need to have some predictable outcomes, reliable outcomes, and maintainable outcomes from what we do as a process, from what we do as a means. So I'll give you an example. Typically, you go to a restaurant over and over again for a specific reason, because you like the taste, the flavor, the items produced there. Because even after going several times, you know that the same kind of food is available which obviously you like. And that predictability or that reliability is what we are talking about in the process. Now there are two frequently used terms. One is quality, the other is process. We need to understand and differentiate these two terms. Otherwise, I have seen many people getting confused between process and quality. Because there is a fantastic framework, process framework available. Does it guarantee quality or not? Is a question typically haunt people. So let's look at this idea of a process framework and quality. Now, I have an excellent process framework to which I give certain inputs. Let's say I call this input as GFI. GFI stands for garbage. So garbage in for this process framework. As I told you earlier, this is a fantastic process framework. So what do you expect as output of this framework? Many people, they want a quality output from this process framework because it's an excellent process framework after all. So what happens in reality? In reality, obviously, you will not get quality output which is Q of 4. The reason is when you are supplying G of I to this process framework, you always end up in G of O, which is garbage out. So garbage in and garbage out. So then why do I need this fantastic framework that we are talking about? World-class quality framework that we are talking about and so on. What does it do then? All it does is it ensures that whenever you put G of I, it will always produce G of O. In other words, how we describe this predictability, maintainability, all these ilities that we are talking about is what a process framework guarantees. Nothing more, nothing less. But if you want Q of O, then what do? Obvious thing is somebody has to put in this Q of I into this process framework, and that's what we have to see. In reality, this Q of I, which is produced as input, is by us, by people. Unless you have quality people ensuring the quality of the input, you will never be able to achieve Q of O, which is the quality of output. So in other words, a process framework always guarantees ilities. The quality that we are talking about is always given by the people, always produced by us. So in context of the project management, we will look at these two terms. So we will look at how these two terms, process and quality, affect our project management. In project management context that we are talking about, the first part, which I call it static, which is also from some other people who have defined it as science part, that's the process part, where you have tools, you have techniques and various other things which remain more or less static in time. That's because anybody can, for example, learn these things through textbooks, through lectures and so on and so forth. It doesn't, take anything from your skills perspective. You can get trained on these things. That's the static part that we are talking about. That's the process part. The second part, however, the quality that I talked about a little bit earlier, comes from your leadership skills. Basically, what happens when there is a project crisis? Do you have the ability to take decisions? Are you courage enough to take bold decisions and lead the team and so on? See, these are the dynamic behaviors part that we are talking about as the second part, or the second phase of project management. The first part that we talked about is the process part, which can be, for example, a person can be trained, and the second part is something about inherent quality of a person to be a leader. You can get a lot of training and soft skills training and so on and so forth, but you cannot really make a leader overnight. So that is something that you bring in to this management process to make it a successful event at the end. Because to be a successful project manager, these two facets, or the two phases of the project management, have to be understood properly. Because just because you have a certain processes as project management process, you cannot ensure the success of a project. You as a project manager have to bring these qualities to make it a successful venture. Finally, we have to look at the project management from an organization perspective in its totality. What I mean to say is, a project is always executed in an environment. So let's look at it slightly differently now. We have an environment in which you have to execute a project, and this project has three vertices. One is people, one is process, the other is technology. And you have certain objectives, goals set in the beginning of the project to do a project. So in nutshell, you have, in a given environment, you take care of your objectives, your goals through these three vertices that we talked about of a triangle. Next, the important aspect that I talked about just a while ago was environment. So we have to understand what is this environment all about. because after all, a project in an organization context is executed in this environment. So this environment is something that we are going to define as stakeholders. These stakeholders are the ones who want this project to be successful. So who are these people? These are suppliers, customers, end users, your senior management, your peers, your subordinates, the team members. Then there are supporting departments, which are also called enabling departments. All of these people are so-called stakeholders of a project, because these people together, they want to make sure that this project is successful, and because of these people this project exists. So in this we have a concept called key stakeholders, especially the customers from whom you are or for whom you are doing the project, then the senior management who have, for example, taken this project and delegated to you to do the project management, and the team members who execute the project. So these are the key stakeholders from the stakeholders environment that we talked about. So in summary, I can quickly tell few things that we already discussed. One, we defined what a project is all about. It's a time-bound set of activity with certain constraints like cost, scope, and time. Next, we looked at the project management as a process and two phases of project management. One, I defined it as static, the other one is dynamic, where the static part is the process part, the dynamic part is the leadership part. And finally, we looked at who are all the stakeholders of a project, for whom we are doing this project, because of which this project exists. Now, I would like to explore a few more things before going into the next video. Just think about what happens if the scope changes within the project context. Why do you call, for example, the enabling departments as stakeholders? Discuss amongst yourselves and then come back to me if you have any doubts, any clarifications needed. With that, we come to the end of this video. In the next video, we will explore few more fundamental concepts of project management.